welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I have an interesting video today that I'm going to share with you. We're basically going to be talking about long-term storage for ammunition. So maybe you've been reloading, and you've got this stockpile of ammunition, or possibly on the other side of the spectrum, maybe you've been purchasing a lot of ammo, but in either case you have this big stockpile of ammunition and you're not sure what's the most viable option for storing that ammunition. And when I say storing it, I mean long-term storage. I don't mean storing it for a few weeks or a few months. I'm talking about storing ammunition for years. So I'm going to share with you 3 basic storage options that a lot of people use for ammunition. I'm going to give you a little bit of my opinions on those 3 options, and then at the end of the discussion I'm going to take you through the process. We're going to build an ammunition box made out of wood. So the first option that people like to use are these metal military grade ammunition boxes. I love these things. They're great. They're very durable. One of the things that I like about them very much is that they have a rubber gasket like seal. I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to get it where you can see it. But they have this rubber seal that goes all the way around the lid. And so when you put your ammunition inside of these and you shut that down and you close it shut, your ammunition is now inside of a sealed container. And this is good. It keeps all the elements out. You could take these out in the rain, in the snow. You could drop them in a puddle of water. It's not going to hurt your ammunition inside. I personally don't use these for long-term storage though. And that's because I'm afraid that if this seal gets compromised, or maybe if I opened it and closed it when it was a humid day out or moisture or something, any kind of condensation that gets inside of this box has no way of getting out because it's such a sealed container. They're great. Some people swear by them, but in my personal opinion, these just aren't the best option for long-term storage. As far as durability, yes. But as far as compromising your ammo, maybe you set it up on the shelf, you come back a year later, you find out that the box is all rusted inside and your ammunition's tarnished. My opinion, not the best option. I use these a lot though for taking them out to the range. I might load it up with reloads and let them sit for 3-4 months, and then I'll take it out to the range, do some shooting. They're great for that though. The second option a lot of people use is they'll go out and they'll buy like a handyman box or a tackle box type box made out of plastic. You can find these at a lot of your local hardware stores, maybe Home Depot, maybe Lowe's, True Value. I think Walmart even sells these. They're a good option for storing ammunition, but not on the long term in my opinion. They're not near as durable as the metal ammunition boxes. They do hold a lot of ammo. Plastic is a very good barrier at keeping things out, but again, very similar to the metal boxes, that barrier could very easily keep moisture inside. So I use these for week trips and stuff like that, just like the metal ones, but my personal opinion on plastic, not that good of an option for long-term storage. The third option is a wooden ammunition box. This is one of them that I've built. I think these are great. This is something similar to what we're going to build today. I like wood because it's a very porous surface. It's a very spongy like material. Wood is very absorbent to moisture. So if you had your ammunition inside of a wooden box and there was any kind of condensation in that box, there would be a good chance that the condensation would try to leave and go away from go away from the ammunition and soak into the wood and eventually dissipate out into the air. So my personal opinion, wooden boxes are the way to go for long-term storage. They're not as durable as the metal, but they're more durable than the plastic. And that's what I'm going to share with you in this video. We're going to go through, I'm going to share with you, we're going to make a wooden ammunition box. Stay tuned. Okay everybody, in my hands you can see that I have a single piece of wood. I have one board. This board is referred to as a 1x8 by 8. And what they mean by that is when they cut them rough, they're 1 inch thick by 8 inches wide by 8 feet long. That's what you're going to need for this project. Just one of those. The one that I'm holding right now is made out of pine wood. Pine is a softer wood. It works great for the ammunition boxes though. I've made several boxes in the past out of pine and the durability is pretty good. If you want something a little harder, a little more durable, I'd recommend looking into a wood such as poplar, maybe maple, or oak. The downside to those harder woods is they're going to cost more money, and at the end when we get the box built they're going to be a heavier box by weight. But the choice of wood is really up to you. My recommendation is pine 1x8 by 8. Okay, I'd like to take a brief moment and talk to you about a few of the items that I have on my bench. Now, in no really specific order, I'm going to talk about them. So one thing that you might need is a good sander. You're going to need a tape measure. Some of the bits. This is a 1/4 inch drill bit. This is a pilot bit or a countersinking bit. You're going to need a Phillips screw to put the screws in. A small carabiner. A carpenter's pencil. 3 strap hinges. And really it could be any kind of hinges of your choice. These are 2-inch strap hinges. You could use just 2-inch regular hinges if you want. Some screws. These are number 6 screws, and I think they're 3/4 long. What I like to do is I like to take a little bowl and put them in a little bowl. This is the safety hasp, which we're going to put on the front of the box. 2.5 inch. Some parachute cord or rope, a torpedo level, some angle clamps. You don't really have to have these, but it helps. Safety glasses. Make sure they're clear of obstructions. Carpenter's square. Inch-and-a-half wood screws, some carpenter's glue, some sort of paint or finish, whatever you're going to use to finish. Today we're going to varnish the box. We're going to stain it. You're going to need a circular saw. And I recommend 2 different drills if you have the option for that. I'm going to use a little impact wrench and a drill. And in the impact wrench, I'm going to put the countersinking bit in there. So this is going to be my countersinking tool. And my drill is going to be the one that I use to put the screws in. Couple more things are all my bar clamps. I have some small bar clamps. And I have some large bar clamps. These ones are pretty long. And last but not least, a few pieces of miscellaneous wood. I'll explain this later. But that right there is the basic material list that you'll need for this project. Okay, we're just about ready to get started, and the first thing is first, and that's our safety glasses. I'm going to go ahead and put them on. Make sure that they're free of obstructions. You don't want to be working on a project and have some safety glasses on when you can't see through them. They might be having some scratches or obstructions, so make sure that they're clean, ready to go. And you also might need some earplugs. Okay, the first thing I like to do is take my tape measure. I'm going to go to the end of the board and I'm going to mark 4 sections of 19 inches long. So I need 4 19-inch pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's basically 19, 38, 57, and 76. Once I get my marks, I'm going to use my carpenter square against the wood to make a good straight flush line. This is going to be the line I'm going to cut. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now my board's marked and it's ready to cut. Okay, before I cut any wood, I want to talk about cutting depth of my blade. So I'm going to go ahead and take the battery out of the saw for now. I don't want it to go off. Right now, if I open the guard and you can see my blade exposed there, you can see that my blade is set for a very thick depth of cut. Since I'm only cutting 1x material, I want to set my blade for that depth. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the saw on the board here. I'm going to loosen the shoe and I'm going to raise the saw up until it's barely deeper than the wood. This will help the saw cut without using a lot of effort, and it'll save my battery, plus it'll eliminate the ability for the saw to kick back against me. Put the battery back in and I'm ready for my cuts. Okay, I'm going to make sure my finger is off of the trigger of the saw. Take a little 1x piece. I'm going to show you the blade depth. You can barely see the saw tooth right here. See, you can barely see the tooth right there. That's the ideal cutting depth for the saw. It's not too deep and it's not too shallow. It's just barely enough. You want it to go through the wood with about a 1/16 of an inch deeper than the wood. From here, I'm going to cut my wood. I like to use my carpenter square as a guide to rest my saw, the shoe of my saw against. There's one. And here comes the last one. At no point do you ever put your fingers across the line. So I'm saying, like, if you're going to be cutting on this line, your fingers never do this. Your fingers are always off the line. Never cross the line with your fingers. This is the remainder piece of wood that's going to be left behind. I'm going to set that aside because we're going to use it later. So now I have 4 pieces, 19 inches long. From here, I want to show you the tips of the wood. You see these little rough areas? I just want to kind of clean them up a little bit. Get rid of that rough edge. Just clean it up a little bit. Not too big of a deal, but just get rid of the rough edges a little bit. This will eliminate the possibility of getting splinters later. So just try to clean them up a little bit. Okay, from here, I want to make sure that all 4 pieces are pretty close to the same length. Now you can see that this one on the end is a little bit shorter, but that's okay. We'll deal with that later. What I want to do is I want to lay one piece down. That'll basically be the bottom. I'm going to put one piece like this. I'm going to put a piece like this. And eventually we'll have a piece on the top. It's kind of hard to do with holding all this stuff because it's all trying to move. But this is basically going to be the idea of what we're going to be doing. Okay? That's basically the idea. Okay, what I want to do is I want to take my angle clamp and I'm going to set it right here. I'm going to take my other piece of wood that's going to go on the far side and I'm going to put it in the clamp. And I'm basically going to come out to where it's about flush and I'm going to tighten one end of the clamp. Just like that. Not that big of a deal. I'm going to leave this other end loose because I got to put a bead of glue on here before I can fasten it. So I'll leave that other clamp side loose. Get my glue. Make sure my glue is good and shook up. Open it up, and starting away from me and coming to me, I'm going to be putting a bead of glue on the wood. It doesn't take a lot of glue. Just like that. Take the side with the glue. Lay it straight down into the clamp and I'm just going to gently clamp this down. The clamps don't have to be real tight. All they need to be is snug. Take my other corner clamp and I'm going to do the same thing here. Just going to clamp it down. I need to push this in a little bit. I'm using my thumb as a guide to make sure everything is flush. And from here I'm clamping it down. At this point, I'm going to basically set these up on their side and use them to hold the back side so I have something fairly stable. And now it's time to put my tools to work. I'm going to drill 3 screw holes with the pilot bit. Then I'm going to put 3 screws in it. I'm going to get my tools handy. I'm going to be using a 9-volt Makita impact wrench. It's a great tool. It's important to make sure that you drill your pilot holes deep enough for your screws to be countersunk well now, because we're going to sand later and we don't want to sand on top of screw heads. That'll mess up our sandpaper. You notice that when I get to the end over here, I'm not going all the way to the end with it. I'm staying in about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. The reason I'm staying in from the edge all the way is because I might need to trim a little bit off the box on the edges. One thing I want to note about my drill is I'm using the clutch on my drill. I have it set on 2. A lot of people might say that there's no need to countersink the screws by drilling a pilot hole like that, because they have a powerful drill and they could just put the screws in and it'll dig deep. And that's true. But I like drilling the pilot holes because if I just drill these screws in without a pilot hole, yes, the heads will countersink, but being pine, being a softwood, there's the chance that you might strip the screw hole out also. There's also the chance that you might break your screw off in the wood too. At this point, I don't need the clamps anymore because I have the screws holding it together. So I'm going to take my clamps off. And I'm basically going to repeat the process. When you get to here, I want to stress one thing. Make sure that this other board lays like this and not like this. Make sure that it goes on top of the other board, just like so. Not like that. So to do that, again, we're going to take our clamp. We're going to get it somewhat set up. Tighten one side down a little bit. Just like we did a minute ago. It's the same exact process. You got this one loose. Come up here. Get us a bead of glue. Take that board and lay it straight down. Make sure everything's nice and flush. Tighten the clamp up. And flip it around. And repeat on this side. If you have a kid, you know, maybe a nephew, niece, a youngster in the house, they love doing little projects like this. I'm sure you'd have plenty of help. You got a little one running around. I know my daughter sure loves it. So the same thing. I'm going to take my countersink bit, start drilling my holes. And what I'm doing is I'm going down about halfway into this thickness of this wood here. these impact drivers, they work great for self-drilling screws. Like if you were going to make a metal building or something like that, they really work good for that. I wanted to mention another thing. I want to loosen this clamp just a little bit because I want it to not hold the ability to suck this down. If I keep this clamped, it'll keep it separate, and I want the screw to draw it down. So that's why I loosen the clamp a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to loosen the clamp just a little bit. From here, we can take the clamps off. Again, same thing. Clamps are coming off. You notice that there's some glue bleeding through. I'm just going to take my finger and just run it down and just basically pushing it into the cracks, wherever the cracks are. Since I didn't remove the clamps while I was tightening the screws, I'm going to go ahead and tighten them on this side and make sure that everything's drawn down good. Because it looked like I had like a little bit of a gap over here maybe. Just want to make sure that the wood's drawn down. And it is. You can see a little bit of glue popped out, so that means it wasn't drawn down all the way. But that's good. It is now. From here, I'm going to reach in with my finger again, and I'm just getting the glue kind of like as if I was smearing caulking. Just kind of putting the glue in the low spots. If you see any cracks in the wood or anything, that'd be a good place to put the excess glue. If you see like any cracks or holes, any voids that you might need to fill, that's where I generally put the glue. So we have a very good glue joint on the bottom. We're going to do the same thing on the top. We're going to put it together just like this. I'm just checking, I'm flipping the board away, flipping it around to see what side is going to be the best option for us. Looks like it'll be fine just like that. So I'm going to take my glue, and I always start away from me and work towards me with the glue. Don't ever want to start towards you, close to you, and work away from you, because you'll be having glue too close to you, and you might be, as you reach further away from yourself, you might be getting in the way, getting glue on yourself. So always start away. I'm not going to use the clamps, I don't think, for this top. Actually, I think I will. I think I'm actually going to need them. I thought it would sit nice and pretty, but it's not. It's not going to cooperate. So, again, let's get a clamp on it. These corner clamps are very nice to have. I need to go out just a little bit. Come towards me. Trying to make things as flush as I can. Here, just take a look. That looks really good. Whoops. And again, these clamps, they don't have to be Gorilla tight. Just snug them up. Push that glue. Now let me drill some pilot holes. When you're building a project, having the right tools always makes the job funner. There's nothing worse than doing a project and not having all the right tools. Again, I'm going to loosen this clamp a little bit to let it draw down. And the same thing here, loosen the clamp. Everything looks good. Let's do the other side. Same thing. I know it seems like I'm fumbling a little bit on these clamps, but I'm also trying to push on the wood so it'll hold it flush for me as I do it. I'm not even going to tighten that edge. I'm just going to go ahead and drill it and put a screw in it. I'll probably just do the same thing here. I can hold it flush with my hand. And one more in the center. From here, we're going to take our finger just like we did earlier. We're going to make sure that we got all the glue, just like we're rubbing caulking. Just make a nice little glue bead. From here, I'm going to go ahead and put my clamps to work. So I have 4 bar clamps. Now we already know that we have screws here, here, and here drawing the wood together. So we're going to put our clamps halfway in between those screws. And since I have 2 different types of clamps, I'm going to stagger them. I have some with the yellow feet on them, the yellow pads on them, and I have some with the black pads. These type with the black pads, which have like the I-beam, these, if you're going to buy some clamps, get these, man. These things work good. The yellow shoe type are the older type, and they don't tighten as good as these new black ones do. These black ones, you can really tighten your project very well. So I'm basically staggering them. And you don't have to tighten them like super tight, but I try to. I try to tighten them really tight because I want the wood to get a good draw. And these black ones, it doesn't take much, and they'll tighten down really well. So from here, I don't need these angle brackets anymore. I'm going to go ahead and put them away. I'm basically going to just sit here and let this glue dry. I'll go do something for a half an hour or something, and I'll come back and we'll take a look here in about a half an hour. I'm still waiting on my glue to dry, but I looked inside. There was a coconut in there. There was a coconut inside my box. If you look at the bottom of the coconut where the eyes are, you'll have 2 hard eyes and you'll have 1 soft eye. Usually the soft ones, that's where you could poke through and get a straw into it. Just like that. Just want to be careful, you know, you don't want to get, these are sealed shut, you know. This is nature's way of producing the perfect water, because the filtration, I guess you would say, is through the coconut tree, and then when they get into these coconuts, the water is beautiful water. And in one of the World War, I think they had in the hospital, they had a lot of people that needed blood transfusions. They were running out of blood, so they actually used coconut water as an intravenous fluid in the hospitals. So I like to poke a straw in there and enjoy some good coconut juice. Now, the first thing I want to recommend is when you take that first sip, get a taste of it and make sure that it's not a bad coconut. This coconut water is very good for you, especially if it's hot outside. It's better than Gatorade. But again, it tastes like a little bit like grass, but the way it makes you feel is amazing. If you've done any jiu-jitsu, you probably know all about coconut water. This one's a good one. It's so soothing. Some people, when it comes to coconut water, you either love it or you hate it. It tastes like grass, like my wife. Oh, that tastes like grass. I don't like it. You can have it, she says. But I love it. That's it. It's all gone. Okay, now it's time to take these clamps off. The glue has had plenty of time to dry. And let me set those aside. And now what I want to talk about is, let's take a look at the edges here. You can see that there's a small gap here, and over here it's a little more noticeable, the gap here. You can see that. So what I want to do is I want to take those gaps off the wood. So I'm basically going to take my carpenter's square, I'm going to line it up to the edge of the wood, and I'm going to cut off about maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. So basically I put a little mark there, and then when I get to the edge right here where the mark is, I'm just going to carry the mark around the corner. Just like so. I'm just kind of marking it just around the corner right there, because I'm going to extend my line, and what this will do is this will help square the edges of the box. So I'm looking down at the line, and I'm just cutting a line here. Go to the other end and catch the line. And then again from here I'm going to go around the corner just like I did earlier. Catch that line again. Cut it back. Around the corner. From here. Get it going. And everything should line up real nice. Whoops. Wiggled while I was marking. There we go. So now we have a good clear line. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and follow that line, and I'm going to cut it with my saw. So I'm going to put my earplugs back on. When you use your saw, you have a thin side of the shoe and you have a thick side of the shoe. You want to try to put your thick side of the shoe towards the thick part of the wood. So I'm going to come over here like so. I'm going to cut that right here. Basically going to cut this line. There's one. Two. That was a little rough. Kind of missed the line a little bit there. Objective was to get these four corners. Let me come back and do this one a little bit. I kind of burred up there a little bit. And one more time. Got a little tiny piece I missed. So now, take those little pieces off, and now if you look at the side, you'll see that everything's very straight. We'll be able to put a lid on the top like so, and it'll fit nice and clean. There's not a big, we're not going to have any problems fitting our lid. So with the lid, we're going to take our pencil. I'm going to line this all up flush right here. I'm going to take my pencil, I'm going to draw just a short little line right here. This is going to be my lid. And I'm going to take my square here and just clean that line up a little bit. It's okay if this board is a little bit large for the lid. In fact, that's good. It's better to be too big than too small, because if we need to, we can trim a little bit off in a few minutes. So now I have one top, and everything looks like it lines up well. Okay, if you're a bullet caster, you might appreciate this next section here. I'm basically going to dump some sawdust off of my saw and make a little bit of sawdust. And I like to save it because I cast bullets, and sawdust works great for a fluxing material when I want to clean my lead. So if you're a bullet caster, make sure you capitalize on this sawdust. I just keep it in a little container. Every time I do a project, I save the sawdust. And now that I'm all a mess, I'm going to go ahead and blow myself off. Clean my workstation a little bit. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and attach the top lid now. This board has kind of a bad side to it. I'm going to put that side up because I'm going to be sanding these corners kind of rounded later. So I'll go ahead and just put that side up. So I'm going to take my wood glue, and again, starting away from me, I'm going to make a little glue line all the way around the top. From here, I'm just going to attach that top lid. And I'm going to attach it just the same way that I attached all the other parts of wood. I'm going to drill my pilot holes. And put some screw in there. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Get any kind of glue coming out, just stick it in the cracks. One more. And now, see, I just basically put 4 screws in there. Now I'm going to put 4 more. I think I'm down, I think I'm ready for a new battery. Go ahead and put 4 more screws in there. I love working on these wood projects. It's so much fun. And this basically will suck the top down. It'll draw the top down real nice and snug. Which is actually going to be the side of the box. This is not going to be the top, it'll actually be the side. And now we're going to flip it over and repeat the process. Another method that you can use to do this is, even though this piece is a little bit large, we can still do it this way, and I'll show you how. So you basically come out with your glue. Take one end of the wood and just lay it down and just make one end flush. Get your screw here started. Because you need that first one to hold it. Make sure everything's good and flush. And then come do the opposite corner. And then when you're ready, you can just cut this piece off. So I'm going to go ahead and continue and put my 4 corners in, and then I'll put those other 4 screws in. So it's a total of 8 screws on each side. Now really I should be having this on a lower work surface, because being up high like this, it's a little bit difficult, but I'm trying to do it so I can show you on the video. So I don't mind. So I got 4 more screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, it's spitting all that glue out. It's sucking it down nice. 2. That one fell in a crack. 3. And 1 more pilot hole to drill. Now the box is starting to take shape. Okay, from here, what I want to do, I'll show you here in a second. What I want to do here is I want to come find this edge, and I'm going to draw a line going upward off of that edge, and I'm just barely going to reach that line around the corner there. So it looks like that. And then I'll do the same thing on this other side. I'll come up like so, and I'll just peek it around the corner. Then what I can do is take a straight piece of wood and connect those 2 lines, and that'll give me a line that I can cut to trim that piece off. So let me put my earplugs on. I'm going to lower this down to the ground just for this cut. So there you have it. Cut that edge off. You also want to move the box around and check all the edges. And if you have any overhangs, you know, I have a very small one right here. You could either sand that off or you can cut that off. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. So I'm going to mark it and then I'm going to cut it. So I'm basically going to go from there to the corner where it's flush. Make a small line. And you can see how the line, the closer it gets to the bottom, the less we're trimming off. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. And that's what it looks like. I got rid of it. From here, we're almost ready to start sanding. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about structure right now. You have a piece of wood going like this against another piece of wood, and let's suppose that we put some screws in here to hold this piece of wood. Right? You follow me? I've got a screw in here holding this piece of wood. This structure, if I put any weight here going downward and that screw broke, there's nothing to hold that wood in place. If I flip the structure over and I have screws going down, I could put a bunch of weight right here, because this piece of wood, even there's nothing going to break the screws. So this piece of wood is going to be the strength to hold this. It's like a pillar. It's holding it up, you know. That's the structure that we want to look for. And the reason I'm talking about that is because if you look at the box, I have this piece on the bottom, this piece on top of that, and it's holding this piece. So structure wise, this would be smart to put it as the top versus making this the top of the box. You see, you follow me? If I made this the top, there's no structure other than the screws holding that in. If I was to put weight on this. So I'm going to make this the top based on the way the structure of the wood is. Okay, now I've got my sander. I've got 60 grit paper on it. I'm going to go ahead and start sanding. I'm going to sand the whole box. And of course I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me sand the whole thing, but I'll do a little bit and then I'll cut the camera off. I'll cut it back in when I'm done. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Everything is nice and smooth. All these joints are very close. You can see how clear, how smooth these edges are. See that? It's very flush, and that's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process all the way around, and then I'll talk to you soon. Okay, I've got this thing sanded pretty good. Now I'm going to take a little bit of air, kick on the fan and get some of this sawdust away. And I'm going to go through my box and I'm going to blow air in all the spots. Not real hard. what I'm doing is I'm trying to expose any inconsistencies in the box, any holes, any dimples or anything like that. So to find them, I have to get rid of the sawdust. So there you have it. I've got the box sanded, and you can see some of the areas that I'm going to need to clean up, that I'm going to need to fill. But we're going to make our own wood filler. So now I'm going to take a pan, a powder pan, or any kind of little bowl that you might have. I'm going to get the sawdust that came out of the sander. This is really fine sawdust. I'm going to pour it into the pan here. Just a little bit. See how fine that is? Very fine sawdust. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of wood glue to it. Looks like I might have got a little much there. Let me reduce that amount a little bit. That's about how much I need. A little bit. Then I'm going to add some wood glue to it and mix it up, and that's going to be my own filler. Basically making my own wood filler. Works pretty good. Once you get it, you gotta kind of work it. Make it like a little bit of a putty. And this works really good for filling in the cracks and the voids in the wood. And the cool thing about this is after you fill those cracks and those voids, you let this dry and then you can sand it down. You can see that the consistency is starting to get a little bit thicker. I'm just basically mixing it in there, making my own wood filler. So from here, all the screw holes, any kind of areas that need filled, I'm basically just pushing it in. It doesn't have to be perfect. You got to remember, this is just an ammunition box. It's not like we're entering the state fair or anything. We're just going to store some ammo. By the looks of it, I'm going to need to make more. Because all I've done was the the 6 screw holes on the top, and I'm already almost out. So I'm going to go ahead and make some more, and I'm going to fill all the voids in this box, and then I'll see you again. We'll do another sanding. I'm just finishing up another batch here. Actually, this is like the 3rd or 4th batch that I've made. And I'm just pushing it down into the screw holes. I'm trying to leave quite a bit hanging out because I know I'm going to sand it in a minute. This stuff dries fairly quickly, so it's not like we're going to have to wait all night for it to dry. probably give it 15 minutes or something and come back and sand. So I like to try to make it fairly thick. If you start noticing that it's getting a little dry, just add a little more glue. It's not that hard to figure out the consistency, if it's too dry or if it's too wet. It's pretty simple. That's about the perfect consistency right there. And it doesn't matter what type of sawdust you use. You know, you can use the thick sawdust like what I salvaged for fluxing material. You can use that. You can use the sander type sawdust. Doesn't really matter. You know, there's people that, I mean, you can go to your local hardware store and buy wood filler, and this is the same stuff. That's all it is. It's glue and sawdust. And it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't do a perfect job, but it definitely does better than not doing it at all. Oops, I'm dropping more than I'm making. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing this to the box, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay everybody, I'm back. I've let this set for, I don't know, 20-30 minutes. And I'm back. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little sand and see what it looks like. Okay, looks like that wood sealer did pretty good. Did a good job. Some places it did a better job than other places, but for the most part, it did a real good job getting rid of the all the discrepancies in the wood. Okay, so now it's time to cut our lid out. We need to choose a top of the box and we need to choose a bottom of the box. Now this part, there's a hole in here. I'm gonna eventually fill that up. So I might make that the bottom actually. So you want to choose, you want to look at the box and you want to determine what's the front, what's the back, what's the top, and what's the bottom. I think I'll make this the front. This will be the top. This will be the back. And I'm looking for my pencil because I'm going to label it. So T is for top, F is for front, B, A for back, and we know that that hole is the bottom. So you can see I just wrote on it a little bit, top, front. So now what we need to do is we need to determine how low we're going to come down for our lid. How heavy of a lid do we want? So I'm basically going to come over here and I'm going to come down, oh, let's go down 1.5 inches. And I'm going to make a mark. 1.5 inches. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to come down 1.5 inches and I'm going to make a mark. From here, I'm going to take that piece of wood that I was talking about earlier and I'm going to use it as a straight edge to connect these two lines. So I'm here, there we go, 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to take those lines and I'm going to wrap them around the corners just like I showed you earlier. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to come down 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches here. And 1.5 inches here. Now when you come down and you measure, you want to make sure that there's no screws where you're going to be putting your lines. That'll mess you up. And you can make the lid, you can come down however much you want. You can come down 2 inches, 3 inches, whatever you want. But I've found over time that the smaller amount that you come down, the better. Because you don't want some big old heavy lid. So I'm just going around the corners. Now I'm going to go connect these two lines. I got to put this upright so I can see it. So I'm just going to connect those two lines around the corner. Something don't look right. This line looks bigger. What's going on here? 1.5 inches. What's up with my measurement here? Oh yeah, I'm off by 1/4 inch. What happened here? So I'm going to put an X through that line. I don't know what happened with that line, but it didn't line up, and that's why I'm like, what? Must have been off when I measured that. So we're going to cut, I'm putting a little X on the line that we don't want. So let me reconnect here. Yeah, it just didn't look right. I'll explain what I think happened here in a second. Yeah, that looks much better. So I'm putting the X on the line, but it's not. Now let's take a look here and see how it looks. Let me double check this one. Right on the money, okay. I'll explain here shortly what I think happened. Okay, so now I have everything marked. What I think happened was I think I may have done one of these things. So let's say I was looking for, I don't know, say I was looking for 16 inches. And I did something like this. If I was to mark 16, trying to get it to hold there. If I was to mark 16 inches, the line would be, trying to get it to hold, right there. But if I come here and I come down the same amount on both ends and I mark 16 inches, the line is here. So the difference between those two lines could be up to an inch, this one and this one. So I think that's what happened to me. No biggies. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to leave the front alone. I want to do the sides and the back. What I'm going to do, I'm going to have to come over here. Actually, I was better here. I'm going to take my saw and I'm going to cut along the lines. And I'm going to expose the lid, except for the front. Let me get lower. Okay, so I've cut around the back and both sides, and I left the front alone. And what I'd recommend is I'd recommend you go a little deeper than 1.5 inches, because I hit a couple screws. I heard a couple screws get hit. So maybe 1.75 inches or something, just a quick recommendation. So now I've got the lid open. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good sanding again. This will be kind of the final sanding. Okay, so we've got everything sanded down really nice, really pretty. And I sanded down my letters, but I still know that this is the front because this is the side that I didn't sand. Now I want to note one thing, and that's when I did my sanding, I kind of rounded my edges. See that? Kind of rounded everything. The only things that I didn't round are the bottom. I kept the bottoms flat. I just rounded the tops, the sides, the curves. So now I'd like to take and hang my hinges. That's the next step, hanging the hinges. If I measure the box, and this is the back of course, if I measure the box from one side to the other, it's 20 inches. So half of 20 is 10 inches. So I'm going to put a mark at the 10 inch mark. Make a small line with my carpenter's pencil or my square. It doesn't have to be real big. Now half of 10 is 5. And 10 plus 5 is 15. So I have the 5 inch mark marked, the 10 inch mark, and the 15 inch mark. And this is where I'm going to install my hinges. 5, 10, and 15. There's no need to pre-drill the screws for these hinges because they're small screws. But what I am going to do is I'm going to turn my clutch all the way down to the lowest setting, down to 1. And I'm going to install the outside hinges first. I'm putting the screw right on the line. I think I might need a little more clutch than 1. There we go. Let's go about 1.5. I'm going to put the top screw and the bottom screw. Whoops. There we go. 10. Excuse me, 5. Now we're going to go with the middle one for 10 inches. And the last one at 15 inches. And that's all we're going to do. We're not going to put all the screws in the hinges yet. Because what we need to do now is we need to cut the front out. But before we cut the front, we need to make that center mark of 10 inches. Where's my pencil? 10 inches. 1, 2, that's the center. Carpenter's pencil. My square. Now I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm going to line the cut mark from here to the cut mark of here. I'm going to connect them with the line. And I'm basically going to cut the front of the box open. So that's what we look like. That's where I'm going to cut the front. See? I catch it from that corner where the cut was. I make my line. My line goes all the way across to this one. This is my 10-inch center mark. See that? And if you flip it around, I have 3 hinges on the back. 5-inch, 10-inch, and 15-inch. So now, let me go ahead and cut that front edge off.